Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to another video. Really excited to have you all back for another one. Let's continue our Linux journey, and of course this is the next step in that journey, and we're going to continue talking about Vim. In this video, I'm going to teach you guys some advanced editing. I'm going to talk a little bit about some customization as well. So just to jump right into some of those topics, you're going to learn about searching, you're going to learn about using the substitution command, you're going to learn all about copy and paste, or in the Vim world, yank and paste, and I'll touch a little bit about vimrc and what a vimrc is used for and how you can use that in order to customize Vim. Oh, and I forgot to mention, so if you watched our previous video, this video is going to be a little bit different as I wasn't as lazy as my last video and I actually found the steps in Vim Tutor where you can find what we're talking about. It was actually funny because as I was looking at Vim Tutor, and I said in my last video that I'm not sure if Vim Tutor covers some of the things I was teaching you. It actually is in there. You can actually use what you learned today, which is the search command, and find some of those things that I was teaching you in the last video. And one of the things you're going to notice about engineers is sometimes they can get a little bit lazy. So don't adopt that habit, by the way. But before we jump into things, make sure you go ahead and give me a like for the video as it helps the channel grow. Make sure you subscribe to the channel and turn on your notifications so that way you know whenever we upload new videos to the channel. And lastly, share the video with a family member or friend so they can get started on their tech journey. One last thing before I forget, make sure you check out the description. Remember, I say this in every video, and of course it's true. You want to check the description because that's where we put all the latest and greatest information. So as we release new things, as we update information, that description will always be updated with the latest and greatest. So with housekeeping out of the way, let's jump into the desktop and let's learn all about advanced editing and customization in Vim. So welcome to the desktop, guys, and by now, as I say in every video, at this point in the game, this environment should be familiar for you. And if it isn't, then go ahead and check out the link in the descriptions. Make sure you check out our playlist. Each lesson builds on the prior lesson, so if you miss something, it's going to be very easy to get lost. And one other item that I'll mention, I do apologize if the audio comes out a little bit rough in this particular video. I am on travel at the moment, but I wanted to make sure that even though I forgot my microphone at home, you still got the content that you need in order to continue your Linux journey. So with all that aside, let's jump into today's lesson. And of course, as always, the first thing that we do when we jump into our lessons is we start our terminal. And of course, we head over to activities and let's click on our terminal. Let's go ahead and make this a little bit bigger, and hopefully that should be good enough for you to read. In order to learn about advanced editing and customization when it comes to Vim, let's go ahead and launch Vim Tutor like we did last time in order to practice today's lesson. So in the terminal, we type Vim Tutor, hit enter, and of course, welcome to Vim Tutor. And what I like to do is I like to set our number. As you see, by using the set number command, you're able to see what line number you are on. So let's talk a little bit about copying and pasting. In order to learn about copying and pasting, we have to head over to line 784. So in the last video, I showed you how to go ahead and jump between lines. So this shouldn't be difficult for you. So let's type in 784 and hit go. And let's scroll down a little bit because I want to make sure we see the entire screen. So here we are on lesson 6.4, and it talks to you all about how to copy and paste. And the really interesting thing is Y is for copy and P is for paste. Now the question you might be asking is, why do you use the character Y in order for copy? Because P for paste, that sounds like it works, but Y for copy, what the heck does that mean? And Y actually stands for yank, and yank is another word for copy. So as you can see here in the steps, it actually tells you how to go about copy and paste. And one of the things that you learn with this, and it's important, and it's on line 791, is learning all about visual mode. So visual mode allows you to highlight using the cursor, and it's very interesting. So let's head over to line 802. Now that we're on line 802, let's follow the instructions. So as you see in step 1, we have to go after the A. So let's make our way there. Second step is to go into visual mode, and we go into visual mode by pressing the letter V. Now we're in visual mode, and you can see that we're in visual mode because it tells us right in the bottom over here. So that's pretty cool. Now that we're in visual mode, as you can see in step number 2, it tells us to go ahead and move our cursor just before the word first. So we're going to use our navigation keys here, and you learned this in a previous lesson, in order to highlight everything just before the word first. And be very careful with the cursor because you want to make sure you highlight just before first and not actually highlight the F as you're seeing here. So let's go back and make sure that we're following instructions. And then the next step, in step 3, tells us to use Y for yank or copy. Now that we finished copying and we can go down to line 803, we can actually paste what we copied. Now here's something interesting. When you're on line 803, you can't go past the parentheses that you're seeing here. This is the farthest that it will go. So in this case, you can use P in order to paste, and you should get the same results that you see as this is the... And keep in mind, there's two important things. When you were in visual mode and you were before the word this, you actually were copying that empty space that you see there, along with when you stop before the word first, there is another space there as well. So you were actually copying two spaces. Keep that in mind. So when I paste here, you can see that it pasted that empty space that you saw before the word this, as I have my cursor highlighted over it. And also as well, if we go to the end of the line, it also pasted that empty space that you see over here where it's after the word the. So that's pretty cool. Now in order to finish this, let's go ahead and copy the rest of the line. Now I'm going to do this a little bit different compared to what you see here in the steps. So I'm just going to copy and paste so I can finish the rest of the line. In this particular case, as we explained before, remember we copied that empty space after the word the. So when we go back to line 802, and we have to highlight F first, and now we can go into visual mode, and now we can finish copying all the way to the end, which is the period. And remember, the reason why we're doing that is because we don't need to grab the space because we grabbed it before. So let's go ahead and use Y for yank or copy. Let's go back down. Remember, we have copied that space. That's why our cursor is there. And let's just hit P for paste. And as you can see, the line is actually finished. So that is pretty cool. Now here's another cool little trick when it comes to copy and pasting. And again, you can leverage what you've learned in the past in order to create powerful commands in order to help you do work much faster. And what do I mean by this? Now let's say we're interested in copying the whole entire line and we want a quick way of doing it. And here's a cool little thing that we can do in order to get that job done very quickly. And remember, we're just compounding what we've learned from the past, so you're utilizing previous knowledge and putting it together to make this job very quickly. So now that we're in line 803, as you see here, one of the things that we can do in order to highlight the whole entire line is that we can go into visual mode and highlight the whole entire line using capital V instead of using lowercase v to get into visual mode and then move the cursor in order to highlight. So let's work that out real quick because sometimes I like to see things instead of just explaining it. Explaining it is great, but seeing it is something different. We just learned that we press V in order to go into visual mode, and then now you can use your cursor in order to scroll left, right, or up in order to highlight, so that way you can copy and paste. Of course, you can do it that way, but we can speed up the process by just using capital V, and capital V will highlight the entire line for you. Let's see how that looks. So with that quick shortcut, we were able to highlight the whole entire line, and now we can use Y for yank. And I'm interested in putting what I copied below the line that we have now, which is 803. So we have to move our cursor to the end of the line, and now we can hit P in order to paste that. And just like that, you were able to see how we were able to copy a whole entire line, and we were able to use P in order to paste it very quickly. So go ahead and practice what you've learned with copy and pasting. And of course, if you have any questions on this lesson, you can go ahead and leave it in the comments below. So moving on to our next lesson, and as you see on the screen, we are in lesson 4.4, which we're going to learn all about the substitute command. And the substitute command is actually pretty cool. And the idea here is that you want to replace some text some old text in a sense, as you can see in line 557, with some new text. Now, if we look at line 567, we can see that there is some words that are misspelled there. And specifically, we're looking at the with an extra E, but it's really supposed to be the. So what we can do is we can actually use substitution in order to fix those problems. So let's move over to line 567. And let's say we are interested in replacing the first the to a the. And we do that by following step 2, starting on line 561. So let's do :s. We're going to search for the old, which is the. We're going to replace it with the. Now let's go ahead and close this out by using a /. Now in the instructions, you actually don't have to do this, but I like to do it only because it puts me in the habit of closing things out, because after closing it out, you can put flags on this, as we'll talk about in a second. So let's go ahead and run this command, and as you see, the first occurrence of the was replaced. Now as we look further down the line, you can see that there's another the between the word see and flowers. So how do we replace that one? And we do that one by using the G flag, or global. So let's go ahead and replace that by running the same command. And by the way, here's another little trick. You can actually use colon and the up arrow to bring back your previous command. So you don't have to type the whole entire thing. So that's pretty cool. So now that we have what we're looking for as far as the old, what we're replacing it with the new, let's go ahead and use the G for global flags and hit enter on that. And as you can see, this entire line, everything that had the word the was replaced with the. So that's pretty cool on how we use substitution for a line. Now the other one that I'll cover, which is actually very important and I actually use quite a bit, is how do you replace a certain particular word throughout the entire file, not just a line like we saw here. And it shows you that in step number 4, and you use the %s in order to get that done. So let's go ahead and in normal mode, let's do %s / what's the old item that we're looking for? So that's the. Now what are we replacing it? What's the new? And let's go ahead and close this out by / and type in the new, which is the. And then we close this out and use G for global. And by using this command now, we can replace every single the in this entire document with the. So let's run enter and see what we get. So as you can see, 4 substitutions were done on 4 lines. And of course, every single the was replaced with a the. Now here's the interesting thing. As you saw in line 561, 561 is our instructions. So maybe I don't want to replace the there, because at this point, if I read this instruction and I give it to somebody else, it's going to say, hey, replace every occurrence from the word the to the word the, and that doesn't make sense. So we still want to keep the original instruction, and that's where the C flag comes into play. And we can use the C flag in order to confirm whether or not we want to change that particular word. So let me show you what that looks like. So here's our original document again. Everything's back to the way it was before. So from here, we're in normal mode. So let's go ahead and do %s, close that out with a /. What's the old word that we're searching for? And that's the. Let's close that out with the /. What's the new word that we're going to replace it with? And that's the word the. And let's close that out. Now we're ready to put in the flags. So we're going to use G for global, and we're going to use C for confirm. And let's go ahead and hit enter on that. And as you can see, it found the first occurrence, which is on line 561. And it's asking us, do we want to replace it? And we could either use yes or no, Y or N. Now remember, we said we didn't want to replace that because we want to keep the instructions intact. So let's go ahead no on that. We're going to use no on the next one because we want the instructions to stay the same. Same thing with line 564. Let's only make the changes on 567 because that's where we're actually going to do the work. Now here we are on line 567. We can hit Y for yes, and Y for yes again, and Y for yes again. And as you saw, we were able to replace all the these in 567 instead of the whole entire file, and it still keeps that context in place by having the instructions read correctly. So that's pretty cool on how we use the substitution command. So moving on to our next lesson, let's talk about the search command. And the search command is actually very easy to use. And we use the / in order to search for a particular string or text. So if we read the instructions here, the instructions tell us that we have to search for error, and of course error is spelled incorrectly. So let's go ahead and use the / character, and let's type in error the way it's spelled. So as you see, it's actually spelled with 3 R's and 2 O's. And let's hit enter on that. And as you can see, it found the first instance of it, which is on line 516. Now, if you read steps 3, you can see that you can use lowercase n to search for the phrase again, or you can use capital N to search in the opposite direction. So in that case, if I were to use lowercase n, I should see my cursor go to line 526. Let's try that. And of course, I was able to see that my cursor found the next phrase, which was spelled incorrectly, of course, and that was on line 526. Now let's use capital N to see what happens. And as you saw, we were able to search the same phrase in the opposite direction by using capital N. Now here's the other thing that I'll use quite often as well, and that's talked about in line 521, or step number 4. And it's actually using question mark instead of the /, and we do that by searching backwards. Now you may be saying, well, why would you want to search backwards? Well, let's pretend that we are going to the end of the document. So here we are in the end of the document, and now let's say we wanted to search for that same error. Well, in this particular case, we have to search backwards because we can't go forward. We're at the end of the document. So we're going to use question mark. We're going to type in error. And remember, we have to spell it incorrectly. So that's 3 R's, 2 O's, and that should be correct from the example that we're working on. So if I hit enter on that, you can see that it actually went backwards because we went from line 970 all the way to line 526, and it found the first phrase of error spelled incorrectly. Now from here, we can also use step 3 in order to simply search forward or simply search backwards. So let's use lowercase n first. And as you can see, it found the next phrase, which is actually working backwards. Interesting on how that works. See the difference there. Now, if we go in the opposite direction, we should see that it goes back to the first instance by using capital N. And of course, there you have it. So go ahead and practice that because that might be a little bit interesting. And I'll leave it up to you to go ahead and read step 5. I personally don't use step 5 as often, but I'll leave it up to you to try it out and see if that works best for you. So at this point, we are all done with the search command. There's one other item that I want to show you for this video, and it has to do with your settings. Where do you save your settings? So let's head back to our terminal and get out of VIM Tutor in order to see that. And of course, we do that by :Q. And don't forget, we're going to use the exclamation because we did make changes to this document and we're not looking to save the changes. So let's hit exclamation for yes, don't save my changes. And of course, we're right back into our terminal. Now let's talk a little bit about vimrc. Now, when working with Vim, when you open up Vim, it doesn't have any settings applied to it unless if you use a vimrc in order to do it. So let's take a look at what files are on my home directory, and we do that by using ls. Let's say we're interested in looking at Lewis findings. Now let's open Lewis_findings with Vim. So here we have Lewis_findings opened with Vim, and it's just a simple file that I created in past videos that show us some findings with anything that has Lewis in it. Now, as you saw when we were working with Vim Tutor and I was enabling the option that says set numbers, that option brings up line numbers for us. And when we are working with files, that is a very nifty thing to have on, because in this particular case, what if I want to go to line number 9? Am I going to sit here and count, is there line number 9? I'd rather just do :set number and see that line number 9 does exist and it's actually the last number. So I can just do 9 and go, and there you are, I'm at the last number. Well, what if the file's bigger than that? Or what if it's smaller, right? We're not gonna go ahead and take a guess. It's important to have that feature. But here's the other interesting problem that we have. So let's exit out of Vim, and let's launch Vim again. As you see, I've lost that particular feature. Why? Because I don't have it saved. And it becomes a pain in the butt in order to keep typing the same things over and over to enable the feature. So that's where a vimrc comes into play. It helps you save your settings that you normally use in Vim, and it applies it every time you launch Vim. So let's exit out from here. Now, you might be asking, well, where does this settings file go? And it typically goes into your home directory. So if we look inside the home directory, we can see that there is no vimrc file here. But hold on a second. We are actually not looking correctly, because you actually have to look at your hidden files, because a vimrc file is actually a hidden file. And a hidden file is designated by using a period in front of the actual name of the file. And you've learned this in the past if you go through some of my previous video. So let's go ahead and do an ls-la, and you can see that there's several hidden files in my home directory at the moment. So as an example, .viminfo is a hidden file. So let's go ahead and create a hidden file for our vimrc, and we're going to use vi in order to do that, because we want to make sure that we set our numbers as a setting in that vimrc file. So let's do vim space period vimrc, and what this command is telling us is that we're getting ready to create a .vimrc file, and we're going to save it in our home directory because we are using a relative path. Remember, what is the difference between a relative path or an absolute path? If you know that and have remembered that from previous video, go ahead and leave me a comment in the comments below. So let's go ahead and hit enter on this. Now that we opened up our file, let's go into insert mode, and let's put in our first command, which is :set space number. Let's exit out of insert mode. Let's go ahead and write and quit, because we want to save our file. And now if I launch Vim using the same command before, and we're going to be using Vim in order to look at our Lewis_findings. So let's go ahead and type that in. If I hit enter on this now, and as you can see, immediately Vim applied my settings upon startup. That way I can see all the line numbers, which is really cool. Let's apply one more setting so that way you can see the power of that vimrc. Let's say I'm interested in changing the colors. In normal mode, let's type color scheme space. Then you can use tab in order to go through the different colors that are available. So you have blue, dark blue, default, so on and so forth. I think you guys get the picture. So from here, you can actually select the color and see what you get. Let's try this one. See how the colors of the numbers actually changed? Let's try blue and see what we get. As you can see, my background now is blue and my text is yellow. Now let's say I enjoyed the color blue. From normal mode, we can type in :Q for quit. Let's go back into our vimrc. I used the append, which got me to the end of the line, and use insert, and then I use enter in order to get to the next line. So remember, we're building on prior concepts. Let's go ahead and type in our command now: color scheme and blue. Let's escape. Let's write and quit. So now let's launch Vim, and we are going to look for Lewis_findings. Hit enter. And as you can see, our color scheme was immediately launched upon startup. So the vimrc is very important in order to make sure that your settings are applied as soon as you use Vim. Now there's a bunch of commands that you can use in your vimrc. I'll go ahead and link some materials below in case you're interested in finding out what settings are available. But it's up to you now to research what other commands are available in the vimrc and see if it's useful
in your case. If it is, go ahead and add it to your vimrc and practice including those commands so that way Vim is set up the way you want each and every time.
So welcome back, guys. By now you should have everything that you need to know in order to do some advanced editing and also as well customize your vimrc in order to customize Vim. So as you saw in the video, you learned a little bit about searching, you learned a little bit about the substitution command, you learned what yank and paste is, and you learned a little bit about how to customize Vim using that .vimrc file. Now keep practicing what you learned today. Again, if this is the first time you're seeing this, it may seem a little difficult, but over time you'll get it and things will become much easier. Also, if you have any questions or something wasn't clear, make sure you leave me a comment in the comment section below, and of course we'll always get to those comments. And stay tuned to the channel as we have new content that's coming out for you. So remember, if the video has helped you out and you learned a lot today, make sure you give me a like for the video. Make sure to subscribe to the channel while turning on your notifications, and share the video with a family member or friend who is on their tech journey and wanting to learn a little bit about Vim or just tech and engineering in general, right? We got a lot of good content on this channel. So I'll see you all in the next video.